Tony Robles was born and raised in San Francisco, so he's a native. Give him a round of applause for that. Of Filipino and African American heritage. His books, Cool Don't Live Here No More, A Letter to San Francisco 2015, that's what it says. And so make sure that, who sent this to me? You sent it? Okay, good. So, I shouldn't do things like that. This guy has a voice. Anyway. He also has a book, Fingerprints of a Hunger Strike 2017, and they were published by, I want to say this, Ethereal Spear Press. And you also have children's books, it says here.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk one of these.
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to do that. Anyway, but the thing is, the writing is clear. I mean, you want to say simple, but simple doesn't say it. Like a friend of mine says, what does he say? He says, enlightenment is simple. Unfortunately, it's not easy to be simple. Yeah. But his poetry travels, cares, and takes us to memories and reasons for existing as a poet. The world provides us many things to write about. But he covers the ground and he does it very well, very gracefully. Give him a nice round of applause as he comes up here. Tony Robles, a remarkable San Francisco voice.
All right, I'm going to frame you in here and get you set, all right? All right, there you're in.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
And anyway, I want to tell you something. My father had a row of floor-shine boots. And they were leather with the zipper on the side. And the boots came in two colors, brown and black. And sometimes he'd have me shine his boots. He had a rag and cans of shoe polish, and he'd tell me to apply the polish onto the boots using circular motions. And then let it sit. Then start buffing. Shine them up. And I buffed those boots and they shined, and my father's feet were in them. And I buffed, getting black and brown on that shoe shine rag and on my hands. And I spit on those boots and buffed over them, spitting on my father's boots. And they shined, the black and brown of them, the movement of them, the music of them, the stillness of them, the foot in my ass of them. As I spit and buffed, I tried to forget shining those boots. And my father, I'm sure, felt like forgetting the times he had to go to work but didn't feel like it. And I realized with some farther spitting distance, the circular motions coming back full circle, that it was an honor shining that man's boots. It's kind of funny, I saw Cesar Love, who's an incredible poet, and the poets I hear tonight are incredible in their own ways. And he mentioned Playland, and my grandparents used to live a couple blocks away, and they had this laughing woman that Cesar mentioned named Laughing Sal, and I looked it up, and laughing is spelled Laffing when it comes to Laughing Sal. So anyway, I remember Sal's face. Sal, I ain't seen you in a long while. I remember the laughter trapped in your belly that somehow found escape at the funhouse at the beach. And the waves crashed against the rocks in the distance while the undertow sucked sunlight through an invisible straw along with soda pop of every flavor. You laughed at us as we bumped into our reflection in mirrors that bent our shapes in every direction with our minds to follow. And slides and bumper cars were solid like Studebakers, a bump more like a crash that could jar the bones. Sal, laughing lady, I miss your laughter. Your peanut and popcorn laughter. Uncanned laughter that you could hear in a seashell across the street if you didn't have the price for admission. Sal, I envied the way you laughed through everything. The fights between the black kids from the Fillmore and the white boys out in the avenues, jabbing and hooking and stomping in a dance over whose street was whose. Not to mention wars all over the globe. And the bulldozers and plots and empty pots. Lots of invisible lines were crossed to get to the funhouse, to get within earshot of your laughter. Invisible barriers, lines of demarcation, invisible bruises that ripened below the surface. You laughed when they took you out of the funhouse. Laughter that rendered the ocean across the street into a silence whose fragrance remains moist on the skin. And the undertow sucked at the sun, and the condos rose where you had once been. Sal, are you still laughing? Thing is, they say, hey Tom, you're an activist, you're wearing this 415 Frisco thing, so you must have, fought a lot of guys in the street, you must have, done this and that, you must have been shot, you must have, so, there's a lot of myths that go with being in the community, right? So I'm going to set some of these things straight. It's called Catcher in the Eye. Didn't run the streets too much. My father and uncles had done all that in the early days in Fillmore. And all I knew was that they didn't want that for me. And that if I got out of pocket, I'd get an ass whipping from all of them. But when I did run the streets, it was broken field running, dodging and cutting away at angles in a spontaneous no-script scenario that I'd repeat over and over. Avoiding the eyeball to eyeball, but seeing clearly. I never got shot, never shot anybody, never drank a 40, but sipped and slipped a lot. And when I did shoot, it was a glance. A shot from the outside, the margin, the perimeter, while the others were in close range. But a glance, a catching of the eye, a moment, a cloud uncovering something in a split second was sufficient for me to be inside in my own way. And I dealt with shit on Muni, and in the schools getting pushed and sometimes pushing back, but learning how to maneuver. A game of cat and mouse, checkers, chess, tic-tac-toe. And in this city that created me, I still cut and stutter step and navigated streets. A bystander standing by himself, mostly. A glance, a blink, a blink, a cut away. Wading into the streets of this city that created me. Thing called, what was it, like Custer's Last Stand, right? And my uncles were really good because they always mispronounce. They sometimes would get things wrong, which was better than the right version. So he'd say something like, "Hey man, I was watching this Western the other day, man. It was Custer's Last Stand, General Custard, man. Custard was a motherfucker, man." I said, "Custard, okay." And then he was talking. One time he was talking about Pol Pot. He was talking about the atrocities. man, that motherfucking pot pie, man, that motherfucker was cold. So I'm like, well, became, these horrible human beings became like, the names of processed foods. Right? And then the thing is, the processed foods would also kill you, but it would take a longer time. But anyway, this is called Flowers' Last Stand. The little flower stand next to the cable car turnaround on Powell. I walked by it for years as part of a procession and in solitude. And the multitudes flowed past, stopping and going, as the flower stand stood in wind and rain, withstanding all manner of trend and fashion in a serenade that gave fragrance to a street at its most foul and its most best. And I would see the man in the trench coat and hat wrap flowers in newspaper. Violet bouquets, gardenias, holly boutonnieres for your coat at Christmas time. He at that small spot firmly planted as the cable cars crept past, slowly to a halt in the fading clang of bells. And one day I stopped at the flower stand and the man was wrapping flowers in newspaper, and I thought of the way fish and meat were wrapped when Grandma and I went to the butcher shop. What can I do for you, the man asked. I'll take a mixed bouquet. I was trying to woo a young woman, but there was another young woman I was trying to woo as well. What do I do? I asked the man. I said, what do I do, right? And he said to me, he says, pick one, stick with her. Neither panned out, but the flower stand remained on a postcard sent to my mind, no postage required. There were many flower stands and shops in the city, and I picked one, and it's no longer there. But I found out that it reopened, so I'm going to have to redo this poem. So I have one more poem. I don't know what my time is like, but I wanted to read one more,
Yeah, go ahead,
if I may.
You got it.
Now, Tommy and I are comrades in the housing, housing justice thing, and if James Brown was soul brother number 1, and then Tommy Abakola-Mecca is soul brother 1.5. Because, but man, it's like it's like, hey man, he's a nice guy and everything, man, but he came to fight, man, and he came to fight not for a 15-rounder, but for justice in his life, man. So he's a warrior, and I love him very much, man. It's good to see you out here, man. So anyway, what I'd like to do, this is kind of an interactive thing. So what I want to do is say, when I say whose city, what I'd like you all to respond with is get the hell out of here. No, I say whose city. No, if I say whose city, you say our city. I'm only do it twice, right? So I'll just go. Okay, so whose city?
Our city.
Whose city?
Our city.
City of fog, city of movement, city in labor pains that linger in contradictive contractual contractions. City of exiled throats holding notes, of blaring foghorns and bloated corks buoyed in currency. City of leaning flowers and pendulums and clock faces and the aroma of epitaphs moving in all directions as tour buses block fire hydrants and dogs urinate elsewhere while the fire spreads. City of no left turn, no right turn, no return. City of where green means stop and red means go and yellow is a flame on the tip of your mind. City of baguettes and batons. City born and raised from the dead. City of vindictive Victorians and lorgnette eyes. City of flat screens and flat minds and poets whose eyes create spheres within. The creases ready to blossom. City of gold-tainted moths feasting on the tongue's flesh. City where the humble are stuffed into thimbles. City where every feast is a plot luck. City of wine and sorrows, city where the blade plays by ear and ants migrate up the arm and into the mind. City of webs and spokes and shopping carts whose wheels derail and drag in the backdrop of rolling hills. City where Jesus is nailed to a sub-minimum wage cross and Indios carry the corpses of dreams. City of tendons and tensions stretched taut between bridges while ambulance chasers cross and crab nets sit patiently beneath the current. City of climate changes and mood swings and puzzles with missing pieces, city of raised fists and the falling tones of church bells, disrobe and stones thrown into the silence of water, city of shelters and seagulls flying off the edge, city of fog. Whose city?
Our city.
Whose city?
Our city.
Thank you very much. And before I go, I wanted to say one thing because you suggested one thing. I thought we were going to do this Chantilly lace thing. Somebody said that, "Hello, baby."
That's it.
I said, "This is the Big Bopper speaking." Well, I what? Do I what? Oh, baby, you know what I like. Right on. Thank you.
Thank you. Johnny Robles, give her a round. Come on, let's give her a round. Go. All right.
Kimi Sugioka is a poet, songwriter, and educator. When she said she's an educator, I thought, I'm a teacher. Anyway, poor kids. Who counters the current historical, political, economic, and societal exploitation and subjugation of women and all oppressed people with word and song. I sometimes do that in the classroom by telling them real stories. And they would tell us a story. But anyway, she's informed by her experience as a bicultural mother, public school teacher, which is yes, and a human being. She's currently preparing a second book of poetry, While and Wing, on manic depress, and she has read at the Bay Area Generations and at Kim Shuck's Poetry Jam. She's been around the city. She has a great voice. She has a lot to say, and we're going to listen in right now in the intimate soul matters of this person. Bring her a nice round of applause here. Yeah.
I loved your work around about the city. It really made me go just visit it, revisit it. I work in San Lorenzo. There are people called paraprofessionals who work under teachers.
Yeah.
My paraprofessional works with me, has been working there, 20 years. She still makes about $18 an hour. This is about them. This is what you do when someone calls you a name. This is what you do when you feel angry. This is what you do when you feel like running away. This is what you do when your head is exploding. This is what you do when you come to school. In the hallways, classroom corners, drafty breezeways with stories and stickers, charts and stress balls, the women come armed to shape and conjure flexibility and resilient in rigid and anxiety-ridden children. There are children who scream, who refuse to move from the corner they have chosen to occupy for an eternity. Wailers and criers, runners and kickers. The educators, who are underpaid teachers called paraprofessionals, arrive with certainty, clarity, that these impossible feats will be accomplished in a class of 30 or more. There are skeletons of social norms in every doorway, blocking the angels of spontaneity and joy. I have watched these women living paycheck to paycheck, or on money they borrow or give to each other, fiercely initiating, advocating, insisting on the right of these children to coexist with their normal classmates in classrooms where the teachers complain or cannot contain their frustration and shame, when these children erode their painstaking plans to instruct the other 24 or 30 in things no child would want to learn in the oppressive shroud of Common Core standards. No more nap time in kindergarten, finger paint or field trips. No more exploring, wondering, pondering the path of an ant, the bark of a tree. No running, no climbing, no and no and no music, no art, no science. Just a few mental health workers to feel the rising tide of frustration, anxiety, and despair, and the paras, who bravely go where no principal, school administrator, or superintendent would dare. our stories need to be told, need to be heard. I go to readings as often as possible, wondering how I can ingest so many words, so many stories, and marvel at the number and diversity of humans who gather for an hour to speak and listen. And then I remember what I have been told of the old days, the old days, how families and villagers gathered by a fire to speak of the day, the year, the moment, to huddle in belonging. It becomes suddenly clear these readings create a village of stories. Tragic, comic, joyous, numb, artful, awkward, spirited, glum, that allow us to encounter humanity in all of its guises and gestures, beguiling or guileless. They conjure a genuine intimacy that kindles a medicinal connection we crave and cradle, like a long lamented for, sorely yearned for flame. Thank you. I've never read those before. They're 2 new poems. This is called Aluchi. When Tongo Ison Martin was in the hospital recently, I got anxious. I was really worried. And I realized I was worried because of this experience that I'd had with this, or about this boy I knew named Aluchi. It's just that I don't trust hospitals, where honey-skinned men are concerned, or manzanita women, for that matter, considering Billie Holiday and so many others. Killer King took one such beautiful young man I met when he was maybe 9 or 10, exceptionally human and brilliantly alive. I remember the Rodney King insurrection. His mama said he drank so much orange soda he got a stomachache, and she laughed through the chaos and worry. At the age of my own beloved son, bicycling across the country, Aluchi fell sick in LA, where he was stashed in a back room alone with a curable illness. No one to hold his hand or advocate for his poem of his breath, till his phone and life lost their charge. A story I didn't believe was mine to tell, till so many years passed and so many dark-skinned young men became the ghosts of so many cherished children. Just the facts, ma'am. Just the one truth that trumps all other truths. The one that doesn't fade, fray, or rot in my throat like a bone or a bird without wings. To wake with surging pulse and breathe without fatigue, the way Aluchi finessed a day into fluted moments, a perpetual blossoming and scattering of unstrung pearls, feathers, bubbles, raindrops humming with everything and nothing at once. Thank you. Okay, half privileged. Half Japanese, half Scots-Irish, half upper middle class, Coca-Cola in the fridge, tempura or roast beef on the table, apple pie in the oven, half scavenging for garbanzo beans, olives, or popcorn, because my mother was too broke or broken to shop or cook, half North Carolina demure, half California dissident, half exotic lily, merchant marine pinup girl, half beloved, half privileged to go to college, get by, inherit enough for a condo down payment, half terrified of not being able to pay the mortgage, buy groceries, but making sure to buy 20 pairs of socks for my son so he wouldn't get the bleeding feet I had as a child because of the one pair of socks I wore all week, half absorbed and self-indulgent, half plagued by genetic madness, depression, and guilt, half nihilist, half optimist, half stubborn, half acquiescent, half brilliant, half broken, half penitent, half impudent, half teacher, half poet, half guilty, half innocent, half seraphim, half you, half me, half other, half otter, half tree, half salmon swimming out to sea.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. I was going to read one from the book. And this amazing anthology Sugioka put together.
You're around this.
Yeah. Seriously good anthology, I have to tell you. I mean, not just because I'm in it. You know. Tony's in it.
I'm not in it, and I think it's great.
Descant on the Faces of Love. In the mirror of night, my true nature sings and arcs above infraction and censure. The text of despair, erased and retooled with wit, with artifice, refracting into disrepair in the name of silence, to atone for the cacophony raging between the pages of my sins. Descant, descent into a skinwalker's greed, eye of lust and determination and the shadow in his path, where berated souls bloom false-petaled, vagabond intimacy, and shatter the mirror or the illusion of the mirror. Having slung the moon in the left side pocket, I have come with crystal plate and crusted spoon, namesake, keepsake, slaker of thirst and longing for wounded gods with broken tongues. My heart is a penny in your boot to remind you of the price one pays for love.
Come on, let's go. Give that applause.